So it's my honor and privilege to be here and having the opportunity to allowing me to share my thoughts with you. First of all, I want to thank Swami Vigananji and the team of volunteers who put it all together and worked tirelessly, nights, days, weekends, for months to have it so that we all can get together and move the cause forward. So a round of applause for them, please. And we are also assembled here as Hindus, regardless of the passport each one of us hold. We are still part of this grand banyan tree, Bharat, and we are proud of it. So I want to, the title of the talk is Technology and Innovation and Entrepreneurship. I want to provide some historic context to it before we start our panel discussion. Some of us may not realize we actually invented innovation and entrepreneurship. We invented the foundation that enabled innovation and entrepreneurship. If you look at the foundation, what we laid down in our prehistoric days as a society, from math to science to metallurgy to chemistry to architecture, I mean, the list is long. I mean, we invented advanced algebra, trigonometry, sequences, series, planetary motions, distances from here to planets. We, in fact, computed the speed of light and also defined Goldilocks zone. We already know about the pillar that stands in Delhi that we have not been able to recreate even today, a rust-free iron, which could last for 2,000 years. Many of you might have come across Wood's steel, later on came to be known as Syrian steel. It has the optimized level of strength and flexibility. And we forgot, by the way, how to do it. It's been 200 years and it has never been able to be recreated. And a number of universities are trying to take advantage of it. And the list is long, and the surgical procedures we developed even 2,000 years ago, they were still very viable. So the point I'm making is that we were the biggest, we laid the foundation, we enabled innovation and entrepreneurship. We were the biggest exporter, actually, of knowledge in the world, including right from Europe to Roman Empire there, and Middle East, and China, and Japan, and the list is long. And at the same time, we were quite entrepreneurial. We traded with all these countries, even 2,000 years ago. So it's in our blood, in fact. It's not an exaggeration by any stretch. In fact, first and foremost, we were the most advanced, prosperous, and powerful society in the world. For thousands and thousands and thousands of years, nobody knows how far back does it go. So it's not an exaggeration if we said, in effect, we had the blessings of Mata Saraswati, Mata Lakshmi, and Mata Durga. That's what made us the most advanced, the prosperous, and the powerful. And only when all three of them are together, that's when actually a nation and the civilization progresses, and we were at the far front of it. Unfortunately, as we all know, our decline started about 1,000 years ago, give and take 100 years. And it was inevitable, frankly. It was inevitable because we started to define an individual by their birth, not by their deeds. And the land of Maitreyi and Gargi became the land where women's education actually nearly stopped. When you do that, you basically stop innovation. And everything becomes top-down. And that's what happened. Astrology replaced astronomy. Rituals are starting to replace research. And when we do this, we went from being the first-rate innovators in the world for thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of years to third-rate imitators in short order. And that's the reality, and let's face it. And as a result, and not innovating and not inventing has consequences. It's not an abstract concept. All of us know what happened in 13th century when Babur invaded and Maharaja Sangram Singh, and the war happened. And he was the last line of defense of India at the time. Babur had cannons, we had swords, and rest is history. Classic case why innovation and invention is important and critical. This is not an abstract concept. I would urge you, in fact, to take 30 seconds or 15 seconds of pause and think, what would be history like? What would be history like if we had cannons back in 13th century? Think about it. World history would be different. It didn't impact just India alone. Think about it. That's why innovation is so critical. And as our decline accelerated, we basically went from being the most prosperous nation to one of the most poorer nations. We went from the most powerful to powerless. That's the power of innovation when we forget and so forth. But if you look at what happened in the other countries at the same time, they were innovating in Europe and the United States, later on in Japan. Same thing, they were printing press, gunpowder, steam engines, and later on in the country itself here, Alexander Graham Bell doing telephone, Wright brothers, airplanes, Thomas Edison doing light bulbs. And each one of them, the companies they founded, they transformed the world. Not only economically transformed this country, many of these individuals transformed the whole world and made this a totally different entity than what it used to be. Incidentally, all of them, each one of them, by the way, the three names I mentioned, came from modest backgrounds. Each one of them. None of them actually even had a college degree. That didn't stop them from innovating. This is what we call bottom-up innovation. Nobody's entitled to just earn it because they're by their birth. Innovation is not a top-down concept. Innovation is not something you can just buy or borrow. It is something you work hard and earn it by research and development and by entrepreneurship. And that's a fundamental difference. We developed that attitude in 1,000 years that somehow you could buy it. You know, the old saying, Brahmastra cannot be purchased, it cannot be borrowed, it must be earned. Well, you know what? R&D is exactly the same way. Innovation is the same way. So, you know, I mean, so clearly, the innovation drove the prosperity here in Europe, in Japan, and that prosperity drove national power. And the blessings on which we thought of the three Devis, we had exclusive rights on, or patents on, it shifted to different countries. But having said that, after nearly 1,000 years of decline, I'm really happy that the tide is turning now. I'm really happy that the wind is blowing in the right direction. And we are realizing that no one is going to help us unless we decide to help ourselves. That the only way out of this quagmire we are caught in is science and technology and innovation and entrepreneurship, and there's no other way. And I am seeing a lot of green shoots everywhere now. They're all over. In the larger diaspora, whether we are in India, whether we are here, whether we are in Africa, wherever we are all the part of this grand banyan tree, Bharat. We are innovating, we are seeing the green shoots coming up. And I'll tell you, the three individuals who are sitting on the podium, they are the classic examples and the best testimonials that they are not only the high-class innovators, but highly successful entrepreneurs. And each one of them came from modest backgrounds, if I might add. If I could be so crude to say, they were nobody, but they became somebody through their hard work, through their brilliance, and nobody asked them who their mother was, who their father was, what family were they born in, what caste were they from, what community did they come from. All that mattered was what they could deliver and what they could do, what their deeds were. And you know, all of you make us very, very proud. We're grateful to you, what you've done. So as you went from being nobody to somebody, from being unknown to uber known, you're transforming. These are the green shoots. And that's exactly what I really believe is Swami Vijnanandaji's vision is to take each part, everybody under this grand banyan tree, and transform that, transform each one with their potential from nobody to somebody. And that's the grand vision. So WHEF has done a wonderful job. It's a noble mission. I want to applaud that. I want to thank you, everybody, for coming in.